Okay, morning. Welcome to the Linux 101 knowledge sharing session. Basically, this is the version 3.2 where you can see I've been doing for some time, and I keep change some slide and hide some slide. So after some time there's some slide I hide it lah. So if you want to have a look the original slide to have a look the old slide that I hide, actually you can at the end of the presentation I will have a QR code for you all to scan it, then you can visit the site and have a look the original slide. Why I hide those slides is because I feel it's too heavy for this session, because normally this session, although I say 2 hours, most of the time it will overshoot. So it's too heavy, so I hide it. So but it's still some information worth to learn. That's why I put it in, hide it and put it there. So in case your guy, if you want have a look, you can have a look. Okay, so let's get started. So my name is Steven. Here's my Facebook, my YouTube. I know the young one most of the time using IG. My IG is all food. Okay, so basically these are the topic that we will cover today. Why we should learn Linux, brief Linux history, what is a Linux distribution, what is a basic Linux architect, what is a why, LVM, and some basic command line operation, and the last will be LFS. Okay, Linux from scratch. So during a session, if you have any question, you can unmute and voice it out, or you can type into the chat box, then I will try to answer. Or even if you need have a break, if the session is too long, you need a break, you let me know, so we can always have a toilet break or coffee break for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that kind of thing. Okay, so next. Okay, back in 2016, 5 years ago, worldwide top 500 supercomputers still have 2 machines running on Unix. Do you guys know what is supercomputers? Okay, good. So yeah, the world top 500 computer in 2016, they still got 2 machines running on Unix. So yep, Windows are not in the list. You can see that the last Windows-based supercomputer dropped out from the list at the end of the year 2015, 2015. Okay. Yeah, because I want to update the slide, so I went to I will go to Wikipedia. By November 2019, can you guess how many supercomputers still running Unix? This was 2 years back, the slide. So yeah, do you know how many supercomputers still running Unix? Okay. Yeah, Faiz is correct. By 2020, Linux conquered the supercomputer market share. All supercomputers now are using Linux. For me, I personally using Fedora version 1 since 2003. Right? After almost 20 years, the later version Fedora now is Fedora 34, the latest one. So I can guarantee you, Linux will still popular and have a major market share at least for another 10 years. Okay. I dare to make this statement not only due to Linux dominate the supercomputer landscape, and not due to Linux has been survived for almost 30 years. There are a lot more reason why it will remain popular for another long period. Since it will remain popular and dominate the high performance server market, most likely you will need to deal with Linux system in the future. In fact, in our roadmap, our products, services will running on Linux. So I believe if we have some basic knowledge in Linux, this will help us in daily operation. Some of you might already test out the new account. Did Jack pass out the new account for you to test out? Yeah, so those systems that you test out actually is running on Linux. I will show you some at the end when we go to the shell section. I will show some of the how it look like. So basically, yeah, our new products or services mainly will focus on Linux, basically. So you can see here all operating system of top 500 using Linux, but just different differences of Linux. That's all of other distro. Okay, so why Linux server so powerful? Right? Why all the supercomputer using it? Before that, I know a lot of teenagers are the Apple fan. I don't know why lah, but basically I know a lot of teenagers they are Apple fans. So you might ask why Apple OS not in the list at all. Okay, first of all, Apple OS are targeting the niche market. They're targeting the niche market. Mass target are not their target. Apple servers are targeting users that have specific or special needs. For example, they target on iOS apps building, right? If you need to build iOS app, you must have an Apple. And they are also focused on multimedia rendering. So a lot of multimedia like photographer, designer, they like to use app. Yeah. And you might ask why user don't use Apple servers for general purpose. Okay. The answer is very simple. Low price performance ratio. You paying a lot, but what you get is you can't even match with a Linux server, or the performance you get you can't even match with a Windows server. That's why yeah, most of the time no one use Mac as a not many people using Mac as a server. So any Apple fan here? Jack? Thomas? I don't know. Most of the time I feel a lot of teenagers they like to have a whole set of Apple device, Apple Watch, iPhone. Jack is an Apple fan. Okay. They like to have a MacBook first, then they start having most of the time they start with iPhone first, iPhone, then MacBook, then Apple Watch, right? Yeah. Oh, one whole set. Okay, so yeah, that's the main reason. So yeah, when I doing this slide, when I search for the information, I found a benchmark between the Windows, Linux, right? To be more specific, is a Ubuntu and the Mac OS, and they run a benchmark on the same MacBook Pro. Okay, they get a MacBook Pro, just install different OS only. So you can see it's a Mac hardware, it's not a Windows hardware, it's a MacBook Pro. Surprisingly, out of 86 benchmark, Ubuntu was the fastest one. Right? Out of 86, Ubuntu was fastest, 48%. Windows 10, 31%. Mac OS just under 20%. Okay. The benchmark that Mac OS win mainly is on the user experience, the UI part. Running programming code and some games, Ubuntu win those benchmark. So from this benchmark report, we can ask a question. Since Mac OS run on Mac hardware can't outperform other OS, why we need to spend this kind of money on Mac. Of course, to be fair, this benchmark conduct from a engineer point of view, lack of multimedia rendering like 3D video, special effect, those kind of thing. Okay, so but here we are talking about why Mac OS not in the supercomputer list. So I believe this benchmark able to tell us why. Don't get me wrong, I don't mean Apple server or workstation are not good for users. It just not perform as good as Linux if we use it as a server. Okay. Not only this benchmark, we all know commercial users always the masters user. They know how to get the best out from every penny they spend, right? So yeah, this is a statistic from a w3text.com. Okay, in July 2020, over 70% of the web server is running on Unix, and less than 0.1% of web server is running Mac OS. So you can see from business point of view, from this statistic, the business point of view, Unix server is more cost-effective solution compared with Mac, even Windows, right? The links that I mentioned just now are all in the speaker notes of the site. So if you want to have a look, you can get the slide and go to this slide and go to the reference point page to have a look. What are those benchmark is? Okay. We all know Linux is an open source project. Because of the open source, everyone can contribute new code and bug fix into the Linux source code. You can fork a version and modify to suit your need. So if you want to focus on calculating, you can modify the kernel to spend all the processing power on calculating, less processing power on the display or storage. For the same reason, Linux user can receive update and bugs fix more frequent compared to Windows or Mac, right? Yeah, beside that, Linux is highly customizable. You can fine-tune any single parameter in the system as you wish. I have prepared a few slides to share more about why Linux is so powerful, but when I review the site, I feel that those slides make the session too long. So I have decided to move those slides to the end of the presentation. If you want to have a look, you can scan the QR code again. You can access the slide and have a look. Okay. Okay. Do you see the future of the Linux yet? Do you have faith in it so far? For those statistics I show so far, do you believe, like I believe, Linux will dominate the market another 10 years at least? Okay, some of you not answer yet, no problem. Let's see what is Microsoft thought on Linux, right? Let's see what they are thought. Microsoft, a big player. GitHub. Okay. Yeah, in 2001, Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer said that Linux is a cancer. Yeah, in one of the talk conference. So after 10 years, Microsoft become the 5th largest code contributor to the Linux kernel. Okay, in the same year, the Microsoft CEO Satya say, Microsoft love Linux. Right. In order to prove the love, right, action speak louder, right? So in order to prove the love, Microsoft launched a Visual Studio Code, a cross-platform code editor for OS X, Linux, and Windows. For those who are programmer, their Visual Studio are one of the most earning profitable product. Now, of course, this Visual Studio Code is different from that Visual Studio, but this Visual Studio Code is as powerful as Visual Studio, right? So yeah, They let it run, and this Visual Studio Code is open source. Yeah, it's open source. It's not only cross-platform, but it's open source by Microsoft. So in 2017, the Microsoft SQL run on the Linux was released. Why? Because in 2001, when the time they say Linux is a cancer, their SQL market share still got about 40%. But after 20 years, their market share cut into half. Not even half, it's only 80%. And at the same time, MySQL already gained like 15% of the market share. Of course, they still got Oracle have a big chunk of market share lah. What we can see here is if you don't let your SQL run on Linux, soon you will out of market soon or later. Then in 2018, Microsoft released its own Linux kernel in a new Linux-based product, Azure Sphere. Right, basically it's Azure product. Then in 2019, Microsoft team already can run on Linux. 2020, Linux is a faster growing platform on Azure. This statistic is they're giving one, not I put it up. You can check Azure's Azure Product Manager. They always tell people, oh, now Linux is a faster growing platform on Azure, right? And even Microsoft also finally give out Internet Explorer, where all the developer celebrate on that day when they heard this. They launched the Chrome-based Edge browser. Okay, yeah, and Microsoft even is bringing the Linux GUI apps to the Windows 10. Right, it means those apps run on, not apps lah, or software lah, we call it application lah. Now you can run on the Linux. I mean, you can run on the Microsoft. Right, while I prepare this slide, the latest news is Microsoft even put their Edge browser into Linux. It's not only for Windows, it creates for Linux. And also, now SQL, previously SQL can run on Linux, but only for CentOS. But now it can run on Ubuntu. And the surprise is now Ubuntu can join the Active Directory servers. Right? What does it mean is even Microsoft is helping to Ubuntu to join the Active Directory. Maybe you all guys don't understand how difficult is that, right? But for me, like, I know the history. I know without help from the Microsoft, it's very difficult to join an Active Directory natively. Okay, so definitely this step is something pushed from some help from Microsoft. Otherwise, Ubuntu wouldn't be able to join Active Directory. So Microsoft put in so many effort to make their product compatible with Linux and make the Windows 10 able to run the Linux apps. I believe this is love. This true love, right? So yeah, that's how I believe that Linux will remain the mainstream for at least another 10 years. Okay, so yeah, I hope you still like Windows, you still like Mac, but I believe Linux skill is not something you can ignore or lack of lah. Okay, let's have a look of the Linux history lah. In 1989, Linux Torvald want to upgrade Minix by putting more features, but he barred from further improving Minix. So he wrote his own kernel, which now known as Linux, and release it under GPL. Okay, yeah, you don't let me help you, so I create my own kernel, right? And when he create this, he have no idea it can become this big, this far. Initially, he just want to make a new kernel for his own use. Okay, so the key here is he release it under GPL. What does it mean? GPL stands for GNU General Public License. Everything release it under GPL is free for modification and distribute. Okay, you can even share the modification modified version, but there's one condition if under GPL. If your software is branched out from a GPL license project, your software, your new software must also release under GPL license. Okay, you can't keep it private. Yeah, this is how the license can grow so fast. I mean, Linux can grow so fast and go so strong because of the latest, all the talent contribute will be able to share with everyone. So no one can take a GPL software and make it become a closed source, right? You want to gain the benefit from it, you also have to contribute to it. Okay, so I'm not going to in detail about this 20 years of Linux. Just would like to highlight that Linux took a 20 years to play a key role in a lot of area, like power the supercomputer and the server in a stock exchange, right? Since then, Microsoft can't deny the Linux market share and start to join the open source game. That's why in another 10 years after 2011, they start contribute into Linux. Okay. Now, does Linux stop at after it conquered the server market? What it happened after that? Okay, since Linux come from a Unix, right? So let's put focus back to the Linux ancestor Unix. Okay, Unix basically has two sons. Okay, one son called BSD. BSD family has two clans basically. First clan is more toward open source like FreeBSD, NetBSD, OpenBSD, which still active right now. Maybe not many people know, but it's still active. Another clan is your all know. It's the next, right? Basically, it's Mac OS. Okay. Now the Mac OS kernel is open source, but the UI, the interface that the Mac, Apple built on it, it can remain closed source because it's developed by their own, right? The kernel itself is open source, the Mac OS kernel, right? So, Unix got another son. The first son is called BSD. Another son called Linux. That's how it's branched out, right? And this Linux family got three clans basically. The most famous one, Debian. Three most famous clan. Slackware and Red Hat. Okay, so as you all know, the famous Ubuntu is come from Debian. Okay, it's based on Debian. SUSE Linux is based on Slackware. And both Fedora and CentOS actually are from the Red Hat family. Okay, last but not least, in the Linux family, there's one most dominant player there, which beat that Windows in terms of OS market share with less than 10 years time. Do you know which player is that? Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea who already beat the market share of Windows in 10-year time? Nope, not CentOS. Okay, no problem. A lot of people don't know is understand that. Do you aware Android actually is a Linux? Yeah, the one who beat Microsoft market share in 10 years is Android. Okay. First release of Android is 2008, and at the years of 2017, Android overtake Windows, as you can see here. This State Counter is a web analytic service. Their tracking codes is installed on more than 2.5 million sites. They are installed the tracking code in 2.5 million sites globally. So this is their tracking result between 2012 to 2017. They already overtake the market. Okay. Now, Linux coverage is not limited to Earth only, right? Recently, NASA land and fly a helicopter on Mars. This helicopter powered by Linux. Okay, powered by Linux. There's no surprise NASA picked Linux is an open source and everyone can customize it. In fact, in this project, there's a lot of contributors are not from NASA. They are not NASA employee. They open source this, and a lot of people can help to contribute. Actually, you can find the project in a GitHub also. This Mars the software to power the helicopter actually is open source in the GitHub. You can find it there. And basically, yeah, they are open source. So now Linux is on Mars as well. Okay, not on Earth only. Now, during the old time when there's a war between Windows and Linux, we always see this kind of a mimic, right? Just for fun, like Windows always born for caching, right? Linux reliable but boring because that time there's still no GUI. Yeah, Mac OS look nice but useless, right? FreeBSD is make but go unnoticed. I think at this moment still remain almost the same, right? No worry, we just have fun. Okay, what is a Linux distribution? Or normally we call it a Linux distro. I believe your guy already heard of Ubuntu most of the time, right? But unfortunately, this is the distro that I hate most. I don't like it. Okay, the distro I recommend is a CentOS. Unfortunately, Red Hat decided to change the CentOS update model. So, CentOS still remain free, right? It changed it to CentOS Stream. The update model is something like an Android style. That means you won't get just like Windows Windows 10, right? You won't get a major like Windows 11, Windows 12 no more. Just like Android, every update you just change here a bit, change here a bit, right? So the CentOS Stream same is you won't get a CentOS any version, any more version. That's why I call it Stream. It's like streaming style of updating. All component update one and one, you won't get a major. So that's why, yeah, it's time for us to consider some CentOS fork here, right? Oracle quickly say, we will fork out a CentOS and further develop and run on it. Okay. I personally have no idea which we will go yet We still see how and there's another called OpenSUSE also. Yeah. OpenSUSE, I like the logo basically. But the Slackway architect is a bit different from the other, so sometimes it's a bit difficult to pick up. Okay. When you install Windows 10 into your device, you will get a command prompt, a browser, a new client, notepad, or even a drawing tools, right? All these applications developed by Microsoft, okay? So Microsoft bundle together into the Windows 10 and give it to you. That's why you get, once you install, you get all this in your laptop. Whereby Linux is a bit different. Linux is not developed by any single one organization. Okay, the kernel developed by a developer worldwide, right? And a lot of shell command and terminal interface developed by this Free Software Foundation, FSS.org, right? The X server developed by the Xorg Foundation. The desktop environment are developed by another two teams, right? Genome, KDE, where you always heard of. So if you want, you can grab the source code from the Linux kernel, then you grab the source code, the G, and use self utility. You grab the source code of the Xorg and all other program. You get the source code and compile it yourself. However, this compilation of the software take a lot of time, and not to mention that the work involved with making all the different program work properly together, right? All this need time and need effort. So the Linux distribution do the hard work for you, right? It take all the code from the open source project and compile it for you, test it out to make sure they are working, then combine them together into one single operation or operating system. Then you can boot it up and install. They also make choice for you, right? They choose which default desktop environment, which browser, and what other software, right? And also most of the distribution add their own finishing touch, such as theme and custom software, right? So these are some of the distribution you can get in the market. So now you have better idea what is a Linux distro. Yeah, understand what is distro is good for you lah. Hold on, let me reply a message first. Okay. Yeah, you might ask, since the Linux distro is combined assorted Linux app into one installation, why they can't just maintain one single distro, right? Why they can't? The answer of this question is very complicated, but in short, it's because of the agree to disagree. Okay, what does it mean? Okay, I can give you some example. For example, Ubuntu by default it uses a Genome desktop. Okay, so the default desktop will look like this. But at one time, there is a group of Ubuntu users say that, hey, the new Ubuntu is, I mean, the new Genome is suck. The performance is suck. Okay, so this bunch of users also know how to maintain the distro. Okay, since most of the other users say, hey, no problem, the default Genome desktop is good. So this another bunch of user, they feel that the Cinnamon is better desktop. Okay, Cinnamon is a better desktop. So they start a new distro called Linux Mint, and their default desktop look like this. Okay, this is a Linux Mint desktop, but basically the base is still a Ubuntu. If you know how the original Ubuntu, the architect is, this new Linux Mint will be the same. Okay, so that's why this is they agree, they have a disagree in between them, so they decided, okay, fine, you do your own way, use the GNOME, I use my own way, I use Cinnamon. Okay, so is that the end of the disagree? Not yet. There's another group believe that if you want to attract to people to switch from Windows or from Mac to start using Linux, we need to make the Linux desktop look like a Windows or look like a Mac. So they develop another desktop called Pantone. Okay, Pantone. And they release another, they use a desktop called Pantone, and they release another distro called Elementary OS. It look like this. So it is look like a Mac, right? Okay. Yeah, it's very similar to a Mac. And this is a common reason. Yeah, this is a very common reason why a new distro come up. Mainly because they would like to have a different desktop, right? That's why and I believe they will still keep going. They will still keep going. This kind of new distro come up. Okay, which I like to see it happen also lah, because this world supposingly to be like this. It should be, you have an option to choose which desktop you want to go with. Of course, but not all distro release was due to this reason, right? Not because I want to have a new desktop, or I don't like this, I don't like that, then I spawn a new one. Not only that. Like for example, Kali Linux, right? I think you heard before. Kali Linux is a Debian-based Linux distro designed for digital forensic and penetration tests. Basically, it's for security. Like for example, another Ubuntu Mate, right? Is also, as you can know, is also based on Ubuntu. This distro is mainly for old devices, right? Very old machine, low RAM, like one 4 gig RAM or even lower, you can run this distribution. Some of you might heard like OpenWRT. I'm not sure you heard before or not, right? OpenWRT mainly is to install into your router. Okay, mainly is for router. OPNSend is mainly is a firewall appliance distro. So any machine you install this OPNSend, then it can help you turn it into a firewall. So you don't need like buy FortiGate, all those things. You just need a simple machine, then you can turn it become a firewall. Okay, so yeah, not because of the desktop, or then they start spawning a new distro. Sometimes also because they want to have different purpose for different usage. Okay, even within the distro, they will have a different spin out. Basically, they don't want to spawn it become another distro, so they call it spin. Like Fedora, they got a Caddy spin, which is using a Caddy as a desktop. Of course, they also got a Cinnamon spin, right? Using a Cinnamon desktop manager. or SOAS. This SOAS pin is mainly for school environment, mainly for school study purpose. Okay, yeah, maybe for beginner like you might feel confused and have difficulty to choose which distribution to start with. If that is the case, I would suggest just go with Ubuntu. Although I hate it, but I can't deny that their customization is the best. You can install into any workstation, any laptop. It will work no matter it's an old device or latest device. Yeah, they always have the latest driver with it. It will give you less trouble. But for myself, I use Fedora on my desktop. But because of the gaming, so the desktop you are seeing now is still a Windows based. But basically, my own working laptop for working purpose, I reinstall using Linux, and most of the time I use Fedora. Okay, and like because I send OS, then suddenly become another model, update model, then we need to switch. So I can see that Ubuntu will be more stable in long term as a server distribution. That's why our server also slowly go with Ubuntu if possible. Any questions so far? Okay, no. Cool. Then we move on. Yeah, now since you already have some foundation understand about Linux, let me move on to the Linux architect. By understand the architect, you will know if something go wrong, where to look for a problem. That's always, I believe, you need to know the foundation or architect. Okay, this is a group GRUB. Basically, Grand Unified Bootloader. This group is a bootloader available from a GNU project. A bootloader is very important, as it is impossible to start an operating system without it. So it is the first program which starts when the program is switched on. The bootloader transfers the control to the operating system kernel. Okay, in short, mean without this group bootloader, you can't boot lah. That's simple. Okay. Yeah, for those Windows user might wonder why Linux need a bootloader. Actually, Windows have a bootloader. It just hide it from you, right? Bootloader is very important for Linux, as you can see from this screen. If I have more than one version of kernel installed in the system, I can select which kernel to boot with. And you can see the recovery mode. When your system is not working, you can always put into the recovery mode to do the troubleshooting. Right? So this provides higher chance that we can rescue a system from the disaster. Right? That's why latest version of Windows learn it and adopt it. That's why you can have a boot into a recovery mode, all those things. Right? Yeah. Basically, they learn from Linux. After the bootloader, a lot of people expect to see this kind of text console. Yes, basically, if you are running on server base, most of the time it's like this. You seldom see a GUI. But in fact, in 10 years ago, in 2010, where most popular Windows is still a Windows XP. Linux actually already can do this kind of effect with their GUIs. Yeah, you can see that. You can see something like Mac, right? You can see this kind of a Mac effect. You see they click on it. There's a effect on the icon, right? And they can have transparent. All right, they can have transparent. transparent while the video is playing. It's not just a capture screen. Now you can see your Windows 10 can do this kind of thing. But 10 years ago, Linux already can do it. Okay? So, yeah, actually the Linux okay, you can even have this kind of square multi-desktop. Okay, so yeah, don't think Linux interface is outdated. If you want to have a cool desktop interface, actually Linux is the way to go. Okay. Now, when we talk about the GUI of the Linux, we need to know three components. First of all is the X windows. This is the foundation that allowed for the graphic element to be drawn on the display. Okay. X Windows build the primitive framework that allows moving of windows, interaction with the keyboard and mouse, and draw windows. This is required for any graphical desktop. In simple mean, you need it no matter which distribution you are. You will have a X window if you want to have a GUI environment. Okay. Second component is the Windows Manager. The Windows Manager manage your windows, right? Just like it names. It put the Windows decoration around the content, including the button to minimize it, to close it, to maximize it. It allows resizing and moving the windows around. Decide which window on top, right? Yeah, this is the function of the Windows Manager. Okay, to have a close button, to have the border, right? The third component is the desktop environment. A desktop environment gives you an overall user experience. It has a panel, the system menu, the starter, the status applet. It needs a Windows Manager, of course, to manage the windows. And it might offer a default file explorer or viewer tool. To streamline, it might even contain a default editor, terminal program, or even an emailer, all made to look like and to work together. Okay. So the desktop environment including some default tools as well. Now these are the four popular X window. Wayland is the latest one, and also the one which costs more distro appear, because a lot of people don't like Wayland. So if the main branch decided to go with Wayland, they will branch out another distro to continue run on X Windows system. Okay, Xorg is the oldest one. There are some lightweight distro still using the Xorg and X386. When you have X window running from the shell, you can launch the XI program. This is the XI program. So once you have the X window, you can launch it and you can get this XI. So do you notice this program don't have any maximize, minimize program or close button? Do you notice that? Why? If you recall from the previous slide, okay, the program that provide this button called Windows Manager, right? From the shell, there's no Windows Manager. That's why if you launch a program, GUI program, you get no maximize, minimize window. But if you launch it within a Windows Manager environment, then you will get all this button, because in this environment the Windows Manager are running, so that's why you get all this, even the title bar, all this thing. Okay, now you see the difference. You have a X window you can run, but you won't get this. You need to have a Windows Manager, then only you will get this thing. Now, once you have an X window started, you can launch the Windows Manager. Basically, in the Windows Manager, you won't see fancy stuff. You only see the Windows frame, right? The Windows frame and the button. Okay, these are the popular Windows Manager. Okay, personally, I like Enlightenment, although the development take ages. For those who are experienced in Linux, you know Enlightenment development take few years. But of course, because it's a volunteer project, you can't expect much. Now, in order to see more fancy stuff, you need a desktop environment, right? So once you have a desktop environment, you see all these things, all these desktop icon bar. Okay, for example, this is a XFC desktop. Okay, once you are in the XFC desktop environment, you will get a Docker bar at the bottom, right? Normally, desktop environment will bundle with some essential application that the developed by the same team and using the same library. At this point, you might have a question: why can't Windows Manager, and Desktop Manager combine into one, just like Windows, right? In order to answer this question, we have to start with a Linux initial design. Initial design of the Linux is for server purpose, right? The requirement of GUI for the server is not a priority, because the sysadmin only need the shell to issue the command, right? We just need this black and white thingy or green thingy to work at the servers. After that, the Linux community started to grow, right? A lot of people want to replace Windows with Linux, but Linux don't have GUI. It makes people very difficult to switch over, right? Like you can't use, without the GUI, you can't use a Word or Excel, that kind of apps to do your daily tasks, right? Or no browser. So now they want to build a GUI for Linux. But looking at the architect of the Linux, they found that there's no room to build a GUI, right? Because initial design different ma. Linux was built for server, Windows was built for end user. So there's no GUI can build into the Linux. So end up they find a workaround, right? They make the GUI display as a services. Yeah, this display program in Linux is launched as a daemon to serve user requests, right? Even the sound system and also the sound system also is a daemon. So unlike Windows, actually in Linux you can restart the display, the X Windows, the sound program. Yeah, you can restart it if something goes wrong. Whereby in Windows, most of the time, if this kind of thing goes wrong, you have to reboot the whole thing. Yeah, because they are tightly integrated. So because of this architect, right, actually we can establish a SSH connection to the servers, right? We can SSH first. Then we launch the X window in our workstation. Yeah, we can launch the X windows in our workstation, right? Then when you launch the application that you have GUI in the server, the screen will show in our workstation. That can be done. It's not like Windows. You can only always remove desktop in or team viewer in, then only you can get the GUI in your in your screen, but Linux is a bit different. All you need is just a SSH. You can get the computer screen on your laptop. I mean on your workstation. It's a different way of doing it because of the architect. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay, yeah. Okay. Because the X Windows is running on your laptop, so the traffic in between the servers and your workstation will be much more lower compared to a TeamViewer, that kind of an architect. Now, what is the shell in the Linux world? Okay, definitely I don't mean this shell lah. Okay, sometimes we refer to the shell as a command interpreter because the main function of a shell is to provide an interface to user to issue the command and for the user to receive the output of the command. Okay. Yeah, that means the server is there. So if there's no shell for you to interact with it, then the server the server won't be able to help you. Okay. There's a lot of shell in the Linux world. The most common one we call bash shell, right? There's a shell called SS shell, there's a KSS shell, ZSS shell, TCSS, and more, right? But don't worry about the shell. Basically, the shell, the behavior just different, but as long as the same command available in the system, all the shell will give you the same result, right? For example, ls, if you type ls in all the shell, you get the same result. Just only the output, the color code, the output layout might be a bit different in different shell. Okay. Next, do you aware that in the shell, actually you can type something and press the tab key for autofill for you, right? For example, you remember a command called apt something, apt dash something. You can't remember what is it about. So actually you can put in apt dash. You type apt dash, then tap your keyboard key. It will show you some possible result. That means these are the available command you can have. Start with apt, right? Then you can type in apt dash g get or etc. Okay, but these autofill features are not necessarily available in all the shell. You need to be aware of that. The autofill is not default command, but of course most of the distro already built in. But some of the distribution, because they want to keep it light and small, sometimes they don't bundle this into it. Okay. Compared to Windows, Linux actually is much more easier to manage. If you ask me, it store all the user ID, password, and some detail in this etc password file. Right? If you look at the etc pasw, you see the something like this. Okay, so the username, some info are in this file. Password is not in this file. Password is in the file called shadow. Of course, still under etc but it called etc shadow. Okay, and the grouping details is in the etc dash slash etc slash group, or this group. Like for example, in this view group, this username is in there. Okay, so what does it mean? Okay, if you want to copy a username account from one server to another server, actually you can just copy this file epsw, or if you want to copy the group information, you just need to copy these two files from one file to another file plus the shadow file, then the user can log in. You don't need to create the account manually. You just need to copy the file over if you want to. Of course, I just say if you want to, but in a proper way, actually, if you need to manage multiple server login, you can use some LDAP login or other way to centralize so that you don't need to create the users all in all the servers. But what I'm trying to say is you can back up all this file if you need to back it up. Not like Windows, right? If you want to back up your user account or those, what you can do. Not much option. You just can back up the whole Windows, right? But whereby in Linux, you can just back up this few file, then you can get your username and group all those backup. Another component that I want to highlight here is the package management system, right? In Windows, right, we have a add and remove program, and we to uninstall software, right? We have an installer to install software, or we use a Windows update to update install patch or those things. But in Linux, we use something called package management, right? For those who are familiar with Ubuntu, you must issue this apt-get command before. Apt-get command, right? For those who are using CentOS, you are using yum, right? Yeah. And these are some of the package manage system for different distro. Arch Linux got Pacman, OpenSUSE called Zipper, Gentoo called Potash. Okay. Yeah, you must not understand this because most of the time when you want to install a software, you need to yum install or upgrade apt install. Then yeah, you must. That's why you need to know this. Okay. Now, since everyone will soon or later will start using Linux, I have a warning for every one of you here. Okay, if you ever come across someone or some article you Google, he asks you to issue this kind of command in your production server, unless you know what you are doing. Otherwise, please don't do this kind of command. Okay. Not every update will solve your problem. Some update will bring you problem, right? This command, what does it do? Basically, is update everything without even bother to ask you, are you sure you want to update? Because normally when we do a yum update or app upgrade, it will list down everything you're going to upgrade, then ask you, are you sure you want to go with it? If you press Y, then only it will start. But if you put in this /Y, then he won't ask. He will just, after he lists down, then he will straight away updating it, right? In a sysadmin world, we only fix the broken one or update the key features. Otherwise, even the package is old, we tend to keep it, right? Don't try to issue a command and cross your finger, just hope it will help. Don't in a sysadmin world, no matter in Linux or Windows or whatever, it don't work this way. Sometimes it will cause you more problem. Okay, so when you see this command, be careful unless you know what you are doing. Okay. So far, any question? Since we already run for 1 hour. Okay, Thomas say no problem. Okay, no question. Let's move on. Although nowadays you seldom see Linux user mention to to you this Y. Okay, Y is not Y. Y is a, it stands for Y is not an emulator, not the one we drink. Okay. Okay, initially the development of the Y is for the Linux user to launch Windows software, especially like Windows Office, that kind of thing. Basically, Microsoft apps are directly from a Linux without need to run a Windows app in the virtual machine, right? Why we want to do this? Because we believe that in order to take over, at the time we still think of want to take over Microsoft, Windows market share lah. So we want to make people start using Windows. User must be able to use their favorite software in the Linux. Otherwise, Windows user won't want to switch over. Very easy to understand, right? If I tell you, hey, come and use Linux desktop, but you can't run the Office, you can't run Word, Excel, you can't use your Outlook there, then, or even you can't play your game there. Of course, you wouldn't want to join Linux world, right? That's why, that's the reason they start develop Y. But no one can predict that the HTML5 development so fast. Out of sudden, right? We have web-based Skype, we have web-based Office, right? So the OS no longer relevant. Now we don't care. We won't ask you, hey, what OS you are running? Windows XP, Mac? No one care. As long as you have a browser, you can launch almost all your apps in any platform, right? And furthermore, Linux had won the war against the Windows. Not only Windows start supporting Linux, Android overtake Windows OS market share. So the Y actually slowly fade out from the Linux user community. So not much people mention it. Does it mean the Y no longer in use? No. Developer actually found a new usage for it. One of the example is TeamViewer, right? Instead of rewrite the whole code from Windows, they found that bundle the Y library with a Windows binary. They don't need to rewrite the code, and the TeamViewer will be able to run on the Linux. Okay. Another example, Steam, right? Steam also do the same. It's not possible to make Windows only game to run on Linux, so without rewrite the whole thing. So Steam bundle the game with the Y library, so they can run on the Windows. Okay. Now, why the library have to bundle with the application? Why not install together with a Y server? That is because different application might need different version of Y library. So the Y library is bundled together with the servers. It's very difficult to maintain multiple versions in one system. Okay, so that's why now Y also adopt the version, server concept, server and library concept. Okay, so now we install the Y into our own Linux desktop. But because all the different apps need different version of library, sometimes the older maybe the TeamViewer need an older library, the Steam need a newer library, so they can't concurrent access into the Y server. So the good thing is they bundle with the software. Now they can, when they launch their TeamViewer, they can make use their own library. Okay, that's why out of sudden you can see previously some of the Windows software they suddenly can run on Linux, or even a lot of game you can see from Steam, a lot of game can start supporting Linux. That's because of this Y library. Okay, and like I say, Mac OS also come from a Linux environment. That's why this Y actually also got a Linux, I mean Mac version. That's why Steam also, you can see games also starting supporting Mac as well. That's the why purpose now. Okay. Another great thing about Linux from a sysadmin point of view, okay, another great thing is called Logical Volume Manager, LVM. Yeah, this is something you must learn, you must master. In traditional way or in Windows way, most of the time, each drive represent one hard disk in the system, right? So, for example, you got 1, 2, 3 disks, you got C, D, E, 3 disks, okay? Now, this kind of architect or this kind of design, there's a lot of limitation. For example, if C drive is running out of this space, what you can do? Or D drive is running out of this space, what you can do? Normally, you have to plug in a larger drive, transfer all the file into the new drive from an old drive, smaller old drive to a bigger new drive. Then after that, only you unplug the old drive. And also another limitation. Let's say today, the larger hard disk you can get in the market let's say is a 10 TB, okay, 10 dB. Let's say you have a 4K video file in 12 dB. What you can do? Especially like in Windows original way, what you can do? You can't, basically nothing much you can do, right? But in LVM, we can group the drive together, okay? But before that, let's understand the three terms. First, we call physical. Wait, what was happened? Sorry. Okay. In LVM, there's a three term we need to know. First, physical volume. Okay, physical volume. Volume group. And logical volume. Okay, logical volume. Basically, physical volume is represent the physical hard disk. Okay, each hard disk is considered one physical volume, and then it can assign to the group. You can have 2 PV to one group, another PV to one VG group. Okay, it can be done. After that, when you have one group, you can, from the one group, you can create one logical volume out of it, or create multiple logical volume out of one VG group. Do you have any question? Does this diagram explain the relationship between these few components? Any question? Okay. Other than Thomas still online, is any other still online after 1 hour? Okay. I assume those who are those who are replying is still online. Okay. Okay, so you can see this is a relationship between PV, VG, and LV. Okay. Now, how we can make use of it? For example, we got 350 GB, right? We assign it become a PV, 3 PV, and this PV we assign to a volume group. Okay, volume group, and then all these have their own volume, logical volume, but this one, because these two are small, so I want I just use it to share one volume group. Okay. Now, let's say we want to expand this. Now we're running out of this space for this GitLab and Nextcloud. So, wait, what's wrong? Shit. Oh, 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 oh. Okay, let's say the GitLab and Nextcloud is running out of this space, right? So what we do is we add in another two hard disks. One is 150 GB, one is another 50 GB. Okay, we add in into a new PV. But we not necessarily assign this all 150 GB to this VG group. Okay, we can assign separately if we want to, but now let's say we put into the same VG, then we can expand it. We can expand this 50 GB to this volume, and 50 GB to this volume plus this. That's why you can get a 200. Okay, that's why what I'm trying to say here is, if you have, like just now the scenario, you have a 10 TB hard disk, you can combine two 10 TB hard disk become one big volume, so you can put your big file into it. And also you can add on hard disk dynamic. I mean, you can expand the display dynamically. Why I show you this LVM is because it will be handy when you run out of this space. You just add and add. You don't, and also you don't need to buy a big hard disk initially. Especially now the crowd you really don't need a big hard disk initially. That part we will cover more in the future when we come to a crowd. But yeah, this LVM is very handy when you need it. Okay. Next, now let's look at some of the Linux command. Okay, since I talked so far, do you guys have better understanding about Linux? That's the most important thing. Okay, so at least now you know what's the difference between Windows and Linux, how the architect is different, what is the distribution, and etc. Right? Of course, the main purpose of this knowledge sharing is not only that lah. So I would like to share some of the command with you that the commonly you will use. Okay, VI, VIM, and nano. Okay, what is this three command is basically, it is a file editor, we call it. Where is it? Okay, let's see what does it mean. Okay, now when we are in a servers, we want to change a file, what we can do. Of course, in Windows, we start our notepad, we start our WordPad or etc. to change a simple text file. But in Linux, we use nano. Let's say we want to create a new file, right? Or vim, right? or vi to create a file. Okay. Now the difference between Vim and Nano is Nano is easy for beginner because as you can see, all your command are at the bottom here. If you don't remember, you can just refer to it, then you know how to what to do with it lah. For example, now you add one more. To exit is a Control X, right? To exit, then because it see you modify already, so it will ask you whether you want to save or not. You want to save, yes, right? Press Y. And what file name to save? By default, you will save back to the same file name. That's it, right? If you don't change anything and you go exit, it don't ask. It's just like this. Whereby when VI or Vim is a bit different. When you write you want to write something, you need to type a append. You see here, when you click A, it becomes insert. Then you can start typing. But if without this thing, you type anything, it won't happen. Nothing will happen. Okay, nothing will happen. You need to understand this kind of you need to remember this kind of command. Add, then you can type. Then only you can typing. How to exit? You have no clue, right? Now you finish editing. Now you have no clue what you need to do. You have no clue. So basically, you need to know before you can operate. For example, to save it, you need to use a W. To quit it, you need to use a Q, WQ. This is to write and save. Okay. So to quit, column Q. To write, to save is let's say you write something and you want to get out, it don't allow because you write something. The only write being quick without write is this, add an exclamation mark, then you can exit. Okay, so this is the difference between Vim and Nano. Nano is more friendly user. For beginner, put it this way, Nano is more beginner. I would say more beginner friendly. Okay, it's more beginner friendly because you don't need to remember a lot of command. But Nano sometimes is not available in the distribution, especially a lot of small distribution that don't have Nano inbuilt. Example, the one in VMware. Do you know VMware actually got console where you can SSH in? No? No idea? Okay, no problem. So for example, VMware actually got some console, something like this, where you can SSH in. In there, there's no Nano. There's only Vim. Right? So Nano still is popular, but just not as popular as Vim or VI. So I still suggest we should go with in long term right? In long term, you learn Vim will be better lah. Okay. Now, like Linux is very violent, right? You can't find a love, yeah. You can't find a happiness. You can't find a peace, but you can find a kill command in the Linux, which is true basically lah. Of course, just a fun lah. Don't get it too serious, but kill command is available and is very useful. Later we will talk about it. Yeah, it's like this. Okay. Just have a break. Okay. Before we continue with a command line, Remember one thing, in Linux world, most of the time is case sensitive. Is a case sensitive. Okay. For example, Vim, you can get it. This you can't get, or this you can't get, or this you can't get. Okay. It's a case sensitive. Remember that. Now, the first command I would like to share with you is the man command. Okay, this is not because of sexual. It's not, we are men, we want to share with the man command. No, man command most of the time is good for beginner, right? Let's say you is actually man command is a manual interface, manual page utility. Most of the time, this need to man is a system manual page. This need to install one. Is not but of course most of the time, it will be this system will be in your distro lah. But sometimes some of the small distro, lightweight distro, or they want to have less this space usage, they will not install this man features. Okay, for example, what command we can try? Oh, for example, Vim lah. Okay, Vim. Now Vim. We don't know how to use this command, right? We can man and Vim. Okay, so it tell you Vim is a text editor. There's an option. Then follow your file name. Like T, you can tag it for -Q, right? Or for some other, what else option you can have? They will tell you what kind of option you can have, like -C, -S, and etc. -A, Okay. Like for me, I don't remember all these parameter all time. For of course, so for the common one, I may have an idea, but the rare one I might not remember. So yeah, you can always use the man to do it, or nano, also the same, right? Okay. So if you have question, you type it into chat box. Otherwise, I will assume you got no question. So this is the first command, man. Okay. Okay. Whenever you read document, or you online, you see document, all those things, article about Linux, right? When you see this simple hash command, right, it means it's a shell prompt. That means if you see a line something like this, right, it means that you need to type this command into a shell prompt when you see this. Of course, if it's a config file, it mean another thing. If you see in a config file, it mean another thing. But if in the article, most of the time it is not about config file, then it means you need to run it on the shell prompt. Okay, next, where is, right? Where is basically the command is where is this file, right? So you can see if it's available, then they'll show the location. One thing, don't expect this where is rich is a word indexing, all kind of that kind of stuff. What I mean is, you don't expect it can find a word inside the inside the document. Okay, so it mainly or file name only. SCP basically, okay, for example, now if you don't know what is SCP is, right, you can man SCP. So basically, SCP is a secure copy using SSH. Basically, SCP is using SSH to transfer data from one server to another. Okay, I'm not really into it, but basically you can like SCP your source file to your target file. Target host most of the time, because you need to okay, maybe you might not need this command if you use GUI lah, but I'm trying to prepare you when you in the environment, if one day you don't have GUI, what you can do, right? That's why I share all this command with you. It prepare you for non-GUI environment. So this SCP, where you can copy files securely. Sudo and su, okay. I think for those who always play with Ubuntu, you always see sudo, okay. Okay. First thing, sudo in the old time, basically we su into a root to do things. Okay. To do things. But because once you su, okay, sudo, once you become a root, right? You can do a lot of things where you might accidentally delete. Oh, sorry. Before I move on, root is the highest, have all the privilege account in Linux. As long as you are root, nothing can stop you. You can do whatever you want. So the story is like this: we used to su into a root to do things, but we might accidentally, sometimes we just browsing things, we might accidentally delete some, do some stupid thing, or accidentally do some stupid thing. So that's why they come out the idea. They say, oh, then actually we should use sudo. Why? Because if you are normal user, right? This is normal user, okay? Okay. This is normal user. You can't, for example, this is a shadow file. Remember just now I say it's a password file. You can't see the file. Permission denied, right? But whereby sudo cat shadow, you can see the password file. Okay. What I'm trying to say here is they introduce this sudo culture, so-called, encourage people do work using sudo command, is so that you know you are really want to issue this command as a root with a privilege. Okay, with a privilege. So at least you know what you are doing. You won't accidentally do something that you don't want to do, right? This is just to make sure. Of course, not only that, right? Another reason is last time when we su into become a root, right? You can do everything you want, right? But sudo can configure. You can configure what command they can do, what command they cannot do. Okay? What command they can do, what command they cannot do. So at least even if you give them a root permission, some sort like a root permission, but you still can limit it what command they can issue. Okay, so that's the difference between sudo and su. Su is you become that person. Okay, su is become that person. Of course, just now you can see that su root, if I want to become root, I need to know the root password lah. Okay, sudo is execute some command like someone. Okay, that's the difference between su and sudo. Question? No? Okay, move on. Okay, this is a navigation CD, LS, PWD, touch, CP, ME, RM. Okay, we go into each of them. Okay. LS basically is to list down all the file in a folder. Okay, LS is a list down all the file in a folder. And LS actually got a lot of parameter where you can make use. Same thing, you can man ls to list content, ogre, I'm not going to detail. You can have a look when you have any Linux system. So like ls minus la hash, oh sorry, typo error. L is to become a list file. A is share everything. Okay, in Linux world, a file start with a dot actually is considered hidden. You see, ILS, I got this, right? IS minus A. Okay, same command, but with a I can see all these dot files. In Linux world, dot something, a dot in front of folder, dot in front of file is considered a hidden. Like this one is a hidden folder. This one is a hidden file. Okay. Okay. I sometimes prefer L because it's easier to browse the file. This one I feel difficult, personal preference. A sometimes is I want to see all the file. Okay. But what is hash? Okay. What is hash? Or sometimes you want, oh sorry, sometimes you want to see the file size. You need to use a L also. Okay, now what's the hash using? What the hash doing? Let's say minus L first. Okay, you see this ls minus L hash. You see this. You see what's the difference? Okay, this become hash, become got K. If it's a Mac, you see a M. If you're a G, you see a G. So the hash actually help you is human readable. Actually, when you go, when you Google and you get some article, they ask you, hey, issue this command, then you can get this, issue that command, you can get those. And if you got no idea what is those command is, right, actually you can always man the command, then you can go through what is the parameter doing. For example, minus hash is make it human readable. That's why they will, the sizes will be human readable, so it become 1K, 2 Mac or 2G, that kind of thing. Okay, that's how you can make use of this man. Okay, another one is CD. Okay, for those Windows user, always can open folder from one folder to another folder. You just double click. But for in Linux world, you can't. You jump from one folder to another in command prompt. You use CD. For example, currently I'm in this folder, right? Root. if I want to go up one folder, I cd double dot, then I go up one folder, I come to the root. This is a bigger folder. So you can see here, root is inside there, right? Just now I come from there. So if I jump, let's say I want to go into the etc, I go to the etc folder. There's a lot of subfolder. So let's say I go in another x11 folder. Okay, now still got some folder can go in. Okay, now let's say I lost, where am I now? I asking myself. So I can use a pwd to see, oh, currently I'm in the under this folder. So I can like have cd go up one folder, go up one parent folder, another, go up one folder. So now I'm back to etc, because I go back to, from here I go back to here, here I go back to here. So right, for example, let's say I go back, I can hide first, then I jump back to root. Okay, this is the function of the cd and the pwd. Okay, now next. Okay, okay, some in Linux world, sometimes we want to just to have a file to be there to showcase the the assistant exists something lah. Let's say is this server been patched or not? So maybe we put a file in there to as an indicator, right? But how we can you do it? Of course, if you want to write a file, like let's say done, to indicate this server patch already. So I, right? But if I don't put anything and I click, the file will not exist, will not created. So no matter how, I must put something, then only the file will be remain, right? But sometimes I don't want to type anything. I just want the file to be there, even it's empty, because as long as I see the file, I know I done it ma. So what you can do is use the touch command. Now you can see the done tool is 0. It's empty, but the file can be accessed. So let's say you you're doing the server upgrading or whatsoever, you want to have a file as an indicator that you can touch your file. So to just to show that you're done. Okay, this is a touch command. Okay, cp command, copy file. Let's say you want to copy a file to have another file, you can do this. So cp, your source and the destination, so you can see it's the same file. Okay, cp is a copy. Let me delete some file first. Typo error. Okay, we should we should We should have another folder to do this, otherwise it become messy. Okay, I jump queue a bit. mkdir is to create a directory. Okay, maybe you will ask how I know it's a directory or it's not, it's a common file. Of course, sometimes you will see some color code but in some environment there's no color code, you really have no idea. So what you can do is list it down. The one with a D in front is a directory. Without is just a normal file. Okay, so mkdir is to create a folder. So the folder is created. So let's go in and play around with it. So mkdir test folder is to create a folder. Okay, remove a folder, rmdir or rm also can, but you need to put either f, put in a test folder. Rf or rf. Yeah, sorry. So mkdir is a create folder. Remove dir is a delete folder. Of course, you also can use a rm-rf to create a folder, delete the folder, right? But let's say you have a test file in your test folder, right? You try to delete your test folder, it will fail. It don't allow you to delete a non-empty folder. But whereby you use rm-rf, you can do it because of the f. F is a false. Okay, S is a false. Okay, mv. First thing, let's say you create a folder and you found that this folder is not the folder name you want to change it. You can use a mv to change it. Okay, so mv, first thing, the first usage is to change a name. You can change a folder name, you can change a file name. Both can use mv. And also mv is another, mv is used to move also. Okay, for example, okay, I make another test2 folder. Okay, so now I go to test folder. Oh no, test. Okay, test. Wait, I deleted it. No, oh, test. Oh, sorry, it's a touch. Oh, just now I'm not creating it. Okay, sorry. mkdir test1 folder. Okay, cd test1. Now, attach a file. I create a file, let's assume. Right? It is under test1. Test2 got no such file, right? Okay. So let's say if I want to move the test file, what's the name? Or test1 file. Okay, file. I move the file to test2. So now the file move over. Okay, it's not only that. Let's say test1. Actually, you can change the file name. Remember, you see just now when I move it, I don't specify a file name. So it just move using the original name. But if you move it with a new file name, right? Let's say I move file.txt. Now you can see. What's wrong? Okay. ls test1. You see the file move. Test2 got no such file anymore. Okay. So this is the command move, the usage. So far, any question? So these are the common command that you need to browse around in the Linux world basically. Okay. So far, any question? No? Good. cd, ls, pwd, touch, cpmv. Yeah, no worry to remember. Once you have your own Linux system, you play with it more, then you remember it. Okay, owner and permission chown chmod. Okay, what does it mean is okay, ls minus ls hash. Okay, when you see this is the owner. This is the owner of the folder or the file. This is the owner group. This is a group of the file of the folder. Okay, now why you need to change the owner group or owner is because this is a permission. Okay, the first three RWX, this three stand for read, write, and executable for the users. RX mean only read and executable. There's no write for the group. And this third set RX is mean others people. Other than these two, other than the owner and other than the group, what permission they have. For example, like this folder, root owner can have read and execute. The group also can have read and execute, but other people cannot read, other people cannot execute or read write. Okay, so if you give this user this group, I mean this folder to someone else, then he have a read write permission. Okay, or give to another group, you can have read write permission. So what you can do here is, like for example, do I have any other users? Okay, I have etc2 users. Okay, group I have etc user 2. Okay, good, fine. Okay, so now if I want to change owner, ec2 dash user column ec2 dash user to test. So now you can see I changed the inner user, and I don't need to change the matching each other. I can do this way. Okay, I change the file owner, owner to this file to this owner, but the group owner is still remain good. Root also can. Okay. Okay. Of course. Yeah. For example, this is a change owner group. Okay. chmod is to change permission. For example, this file, group and others can read, but I want to only let the owner have the read write. So what I can do is chmod group minus r, then test. Test. So now can see the group will no read permission. Let's say I want to remove others. This means others. Okay, so you can see now only this user can have this read write. Other person, even is the user in this group, also cannot read write. Okay, so this is a permission. Of course, if when you have GUI, you can click, but like I say, when my session here is mainly for you to survive without the GUI, so you need to know all this command, right? This permission. Okay, sysadmin, most of the time you need these few top free mem du pf hash psa. What does it doing? Okay, I will show you one by one. Like for example, in Windows you have a task. What you have? Sorry, task manager, right? You can have a task manager, something like this. What is running CPU usage? In Linux world, you can use top, right? You can see how many CPU how long it been up, 26 days, CPU usage. This is a CPU usage. This is a memory usage. Which task is running and using what kind of memory and etc. So you can use a top to see. Okay, it's like a task manager. What else command? Or free. Okay, free is to show the free memory. Okay, normally when I use free, I use -m because it become a megabyte. If you G, it become a gigabyte. 7G free use is 4G, free is 0G available. Okay, when free is 0, actually the system is considered running low of RAM. Okay, it's running low of RAM consider. Available is just a share one, is not accurate. Is considered free is more important. It's running low. Okay, so free is to see memory. Du minus du is this usage. Okay, this usage. Okay, this one easier. Okay, so du you can see this usage. Sometimes we run out of this space. We want to know which one is which file or which folder using most of the file, I mean storage. So we use du, but again du I don't like is because it's hard to read this. So normally we use hash, human readable, so you got better picture. Like du mean this kilobyte. Okay, now if you go to the top, if you du minus hash, you get long list, because if you go through all this subfolder and show you one directory per directory, which I don't want to see right now. So how I can use du? I use a max depth max depth equal to 1. Du, oh sorry, don't care about this. This is normal. So now you can get a better picture. See, this for etc is 31 meg. This run is 2.1 meg. Okay, so now for example, data USI 1.G, Y is 41G, data is 1.1G. So let's say, oh, why using so many? I want to have a look. So I go in cd war. I issue the same command again. Oh, because of library is using 39G. Let's say why so big, I also can go in. Oh, Docker using a lot. Okay, that's how I know, and I can do in again and see which folder is using. Okay, this is the du, this use. But let's say I don't care this, I want to know how much this space I have, I can use df. Again, it's very difficult to read, right? So normally df minus hash. Ignore all this overlay, I don't care first. Okay, let's look at your root. You got 160G, you use 33G, and your free is 138. So this is how you see your free disk space. Okay. Now another command is ps minus a. It's similar like a top, right? It's similar like a top, but it's a static command. It won't dynamically update. Once you ps minus a, it will show, then it stop. Because you can see top actually is dynamic update. You will wait, this one will change one. You see? This one will change. Dynamic. Top, I mean PS is static. Okay, normally what? Wait. PS minus A. Normally, what we use, with this command, combine with this command, then we can see is this running or is this process running. We just want to know whether the process is running or not. So we just use this. Sometime okay. And remember just now we learned about a queue. You can use minus Q to queue the process. This is a process ID. I don't want to queue anything, but now you know we can use this to queue the process. PS minus A. Okay. Of course, top also can see the process ID PID here also. Okay. So this most common as a sysadmin that I normally use are top, free, du, df minus hash. Okay. This is a sysadmin command, I call it. Link a file. Okay. This is a very important command in Linux. Okay, this is very in here. You can see here. Last time, when we use yum command, how to say that? Okay, yum actually is a old command for you to update software or install software in CentOS. Okay, we use yum install something, right? But after that, they upgrade to a DNF command. DNF is a command, latest command. But a lot of users still don't know the DMS yet. They like to use yum. So what we can do now is we use a link file. Actually, this is a link file to link this command to this file. So whenever user type this command, yum actually is running this command without user need to know. And also, let's say you have multiple multiple version of the same command. You can use link file also. For example, this is another example. You link DNF to the version 3 command. Okay. Any question for link file? Okay. So this mainly for this purpose. Another is, for example, let's say you have Python 2 and Python 3 or Python 1, 2, 3 or multiple Python. You can use this to link to one of the Python. That means whenever you type Python, actually you're running Python version 3. But sometimes you want to use Python 2, you still can use Python 2 this command to issue a Python 2 command. Okay, this is a common usage. Cat. Anyone know what usage for the cat? Actually, just now I show many times already. Actually, cat is not really open. Cat actually is just to concaten the file print on the standard output. It's a bit technical lah. In short is, if you have a file and you would like to know what is it, what the content is, actually you just need to cat the file. Then it will show you the content of the file. Cat. Okay, it just show you the content of the file. Okay. Yeah, that I always use that because I always cat a file, see what is it about, especially when you deal with a config file, right? When you want to know a config file, you want to see what the config is, then you always cat it. You always cat it. Okay. Watch. Watch actually execute a program periodically, show the output on the screen. For example, we know ls is to show this file, right? Sometimes you expect a file to come in, someone create a file and you keep doing this, right? What you can do actually is you can use the watch command. So every 2 seconds, he will run this command once. Okay, so you will, if any new file come out, you will see it here. Okay, for example, now, never mind. So watch, basically, if you want to run, normally how I use it is I want to run a command, keep running. I use a watch. Actually, you can specify the interval, right? Even 0.1 second also can. Okay, done. Next. Okay, this is the pipe operator. This is a pipe operator in your keyboard, in case you don't know what is it. Okay, piping can redirect the standard output, input, or arrow of one process to another further process. Okay, very difficult to understand, right? No problem. We see some example. For example, in this command, right, you can see some pipe here. So let me explain to you one by one. First, you take out some column from this file and then sort it, right? And then trim and remove the file. So this is what you get. Let's see in action. Okay, let's see in action. For example, the file is not s cat, right? This is how the file look like, right? Let's say cut minus d column minus f 1.3 etc password. Okay, so the first command, something like this, you will get something, this result. Just now, the same file, we are not changing the file, we are only changing the output. The file still remain the same. Right? Okay, so we change the output. So now this is the output. So we want to sort it. Okay, we want to sort it. So we sort minus T column minus K2N minus. Okay. So actually what it does is sort based on this. You can see just now the first command, the last user is this, right? 1000 is at the bottom, 65,000 is in the middle. But when I sort it, now the 65 become bottom. Okay. And because I don't like this column thingy, right? So ITR tab. Okay, basically this command is remove the column and replace it with a tab. See? All are in line because it's a tab. Okay. Why we need all these things most of the time is when, yep, we need this. Not sometimes we want to have this list, of course, one time lah. But for example, ITDR, we want just when we doing the script, right? When we writing a bash shell script automation, for example, we just want to have this line, this ETH0, right? So I'm not going to even. Can I only have interface? Can I only have the interface? Yeah, I can't. Okay. Why we need this one-liner or pipe thingy is because why we need this thing is because, for example, IP address is so long. If you want to extract this line, you need to use this type of a pipelining to reduce all this unnecessary thing, right? For another example, what the heck? For another example that I normally use, for example, net state minus A is to show all the port open and connected, right? It's so long, right? You see? If I want, every time I want to scroll, remember because you are SSH, you can scroll back, but if you are attached to a server monitor screen, you can't scroll back, scroll up. Once it exit. So what we normally do is we use a more. So you can stop. One is full screen, you can stop. Okay, this is one way, right? So this is more, is a pipe. But since I already know, let's say I want to know whether port 80 is open or not. Okay, so I can see port 80 is open. Okay, at least listen. Or 443. Okay, 443 is listen. Or let's say I want to know what port is listening. It's still exit, right? So I can see this port are listen. So the pipe is very useful. You can combine, you can see here also is a two pipe command. Okay. Or even you can grab again if you want to, port 80. Right. Okay. What else? Oh, okay. Another common that I always do. Let's see, lock. Log. Let's see secure. Secure. Okay. Secure file is record all the login logout. Let's say I want to search someone EC2-users. So I can see EC2 user login at this time. Okay, what he do, sudo sshhr. So I can grab. Of course, for grab also you can do another way around. Is same result. You grab some keyword from a file, also the same. But at here I just try to show you this pipelining doing. Okay. Okay, so this is the most of the time I will cat the log file text and grab something I want to see. Okay. Next, ampersand operator. This is an actually you can ls. Let's assume this is a command. You can run it behind one. So it run in the background. It's a bit difficult to showcase here, but basically it means it run on the background. Can I run the top at the background? Let's see. See, just now the top is in front, right? But when I run the top at the background, it run on the background. How I know it's running? Right? These two are running. Okay? This now, since it's run at the background, how I queue it if I want to queue it. Now I can show you the okay, -9 is a false. Actually, you don't need a -9 also can queue one. But this top, this is a PID. Okay, now you can see. Not die. Okay, not dying, no problem. Fine. Okay, died. So -9 is to force basically. Now I can show you the queue command. Okay, queue. So you can queue it, and this is to let it run at the background. This one, okay, this and this is something like this reason. Okay, we go to demo and have a look. Text1.txt. Let's say number one. Wait. Number one. Okay. Okay. Let's say I cat text. It show this number one, right? Okay. Let's say I add this to text2.txt. What happened? Basically, you can see text2 have the same content as tab 1. Basically, what I do is I insert the content, I cat it, the content, which means this is a content, and input into the text 2. Okay. Okay. But there's a difference between this double one of this and double. Okay, what does it different? Okay, let's say text1. Let's say I add one more line, right? Now I do the same to so text2 will get the same file, right? Now, what if I put in this? What will happen? Can you guess? Any idea? Okay, basically, if you append to it, this is append, this will override the whole file. Okay. Let's say I repeat this again. Oh, sorry. So now how many lines will be in the test2 text? How many lines you guess? No. It's only 2 lines because this is override. Whatever in there, the output, because text1 is only two lines, so text1 is only 2 lines. So you cat it, you put into it, it will overwrite the whole file and only 2 files left. For example, if I do this, now how many lines in the test2? How many lines in that test2? No. 3 lines. Remember, initially I overwrite the test2 file, so the test2 file is only contain 2, and then this is append. Okay, so it will append the line into the file at the end of the file. Don't worry about this text. Actually, this text is nothing. It just, whenever you use this, it will append into it. If you use this, it will override it. Okay, let's say I change it. Now, you see? Okay, good. Okay, this one is append. Add it to the end of the file. This one is override. Okay, got it? Okay, good. So this is the difference between this and this. When you read the article, you should know what's the difference. Okay, Q just now I show you already is to terminate a process. Okay, more or less. We always say more or less. Actually, more or less is you can more a file test2, or you can less a file. Okay, but it show no difference here because the file is small. But when you go to a big file, like just now the secure file, right? We got secure file got 1.7 meg, a lot of line, right? So when you more a secure file, it start from the top and go down. So you can see this percentage top. This is the top. Okay, let's, it don't show you, but it still go for, okay. So basically their command are the result almost the same, more or less. Okay, tail. Okay, tail. Let me show you what is the tail. Okay, tail secure is to show the last few lines of a file. Okay, let's say I want to tail the last 5 lines. Okay, so this is the last 5 lines or last 1 line, for example. Okay, now this is not the good, the most one thing I want to use it. The most thing is actually I want to use a F. F means follow command, not the bad word lah. F is a follow command. What does it mean is whenever there's a new file, new line, new content append to the file, it will show. Okay, I show you an example. For example, see, new line, go in. Because I log in from another, now I get this. So what good things about this is when you're watching a log file. Okay, last time, I can share my back experience with you. Last time when wait, Wi-Fi got 2 connection. Okay, last time, okay, last time when I don't know how to use last time when I don't know how to use a tail command, right? I keep cat the file. Whenever I want to see the result, I cat. When I do something, I cat, see whether it come out. Until I learn this command, then only, actually I can tail it all the time. And whenever there's a new update, it will show up. So I don't need to cat. Okay, so this is a the usage of the tail. Most of the time I use is some tail minus F to follow the log file so I can do troubleshooting. Okay. Next is a grab. Grab is, okay, I think just now you see me using it already lah. Like grab it is, right? Okay, this is to grab something from the result, but at the same time, actually you can grab, like for example, I'm looking for numbers, right? So I look for these keyword numbers from all the file and sub folders, but basically you only go for this level. So it tell me in the text one got this number 1, so I can see text 1. Oh, actually text 1 got this. So this useful when you're looking for some keyword from a file, right? For example, do I have this? Oh, I have this in this file. If it's no, then it's no result. Okay, grab is also can use it for this purpose. Next, grab alias. Okay, alias. Okay, alias. Okay, alias. For example, ls is like this, ll is like this, right? Ll actually is the ls minus l, it's the same result. But sometimes we don't want to type the command so frequent. So we can do a alias. That means when we type ll, actually we are typing this. When we do mv, actually is mv minus I. Okay. Now, for example, that one of my custom, you maybe you don't know Docker yet, don't worry about that, but the Docker original command is something like this, right? It's very difficult to read because there's some extra thing I don't want to know and etc. Right? So yes, of course I can type this command every time to shorten it. Ooh. Oh. Oh, okay. Let me see. Let me see. Okay. Actually, back to my, because this command is very difficult to type, to see. So I can do it with a shorter one, like I can Docker minus with a format with all this inside. But problem is, if I every time I type this long, it's very difficult for me to, and also I can't remember, right? So what I do is I do a alias DCS, so it shorten. I just need my info and my column. It reduce some column and rearrange the column. So alias is something like you can shortcut the command or simplify a command. Okay, so this is the alias. Any question? The session is about to end. Just few more slides I want to share. You need a break, or you're already not online? Okay, good. Thanks for keep joining us till now. It's 2.5 hours. Okay, almost there. A few small slides. I believe those are the basic command that you need to know so that you can start using it. Move on from there. I want to share a few more things. Okay, LFS Linux from scratch. Okay, this one I want to share. Okay, Linux from scratch. What is Linux from scratch? Linux from scratch is a project that provides you with a step-by-step instruction for building your own customized Linux system entire from the source. Okay. Yeah, what does it mean is really you build a Linux kernel from you build the Linux stuff from the kernel level, not just install the distribution and use it. You really build it from scratch. Okay, why would I want to build Linux from scratch? By building Linux from scratch, you will learn the function of each component in Linux, how the component depends on each other, and most important thing is it brings you certification if you are kind of a DIY person. Okay. Yeah, the Linux from scratch, actually you really build each component yourself. Even the terminal, the CP command you might need to build yourself. Everything from scratch. You need to configure your own bootloader and etc. Okay, the current LFS version is version 10. There's a 28K registered user. My LFS ID is 11,000. When I doing it is 5.0. It's been long time. I never do this anymore because sometimes I feel I already know the foundation. I lazy to go back and do but I understand doing alone may be difficult for your guy. If you want me to do together with you, I can have a workshop in one day. Actually, build from scratch is not that difficult or not that long. You imagine maybe 2 or 3 hours I think can finish the basic one. So you want me to do together with you, let me know. Then I have a workshop with you to do it together. Okay, I encourage you to do this so you can know the thing from foundation. Whereby Windows you can't do that because Windows is closed source you can't build it from scratch. Then that one different story. But since Linux have this Linux from scratch project, you can make use of it. Okay. Almost come to the end of the session. I have some homework for you if you really want to master Linux. These are the good steps to start with lah. You install because VMware Workstation is free. I don't know whether you're aware or not. There's a free version. You can install the VMware Workstation free version. Right, then you can install your IHEL, install your CentOS server, install a Fedora workstation, right? Complete the LFS. After LFS, you can have a BLFS. BLFS is a beyond LFS. After you master beyond LFS, you can try a ALFS, is an advanced LFS. All this is from the same project. All these three things. So if you want to then this is a good start lah, if you don't know where to start. Okay, what's next? All right, you may ask. Try to live with it. For example, change your workstation from Windows to Linux. All right. So whenever you face issue, you try to solve it. Once you try to solve it, you will sure learning something out of it. Okay. Of course, some people some people who like to read, you can either download the PDF yourself or you can get some. I have some PDF. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's all about. Thanks for joining the session. This is the QR code that you need. Okay. If you want to see the slide, original slide, and the slide that I hide, and some info that I hide in the slide. Okay. So I think that's all for today. So far, you have any question? Do you learn anything today? Okay, hopefully this session do help you get some start for you to start your Linux learning journey. Like I show you in the starting of the slide, Linux definitely will remain the mainstream at least for another 10 years. Beyond that, I don't know lah. But your age 20 overs or even 30 overs, you master the Linux, I believe will secure your career path for some way in a way lah. Okay, so in next session I think I show you. I think 2 weeks later, we will have about the container, all those mainly on Linux based, and if you all don't have the foundation, in future it will be very difficult to pick up lah. Okay, that's my only suggestion for you or advice for you to why we should learn Linux. Okay, that's all for today. Next, I will for those who celebrate Raya, Selamat Hari Raya. Okay. So after the Raya, then only we see again for another new session. Okay. Okay, thanks. That's all for today. Bye.